All right, today we're diving into a really powerful, unified model of consciousness. Think of it like a map that shows not only how we get stuck in our own patterns, but way more importantly, how we can actually break free. It pulls together the work of some brilliant thinkers to explain the real mechanics of transformation, both for us as individuals and for society as a whole.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty provocative question. What if your normal, everyday awareness, what you call waking life, is actually just a trance that you haven't even noticed? A pattern that's become so familiar, so normal, you don't even see it as a pattern anymore. This one question right here is the key to unlocking the entire model we're about to explore.
So where do we start? Well, we have to begin with the first piece of the puzzle, our own individual experience of consciousness, which it turns out we can think of as a personal trance loop.
Now, when I use the word trance, don't think about stage hypnosis or anything like that. We're drawing from the work of Gilligan here. And in this context, a trance is basically the fundamental operating system of your identity. It's this self-sustaining loop where your attention gets stuck in a pattern, your memories pop up to reinforce it, your emotions lock it in place, and your beliefs come along to justify the whole thing.
Here's kind of how it runs in real time. First, our attention gets locked into some familiar groove. Let's say it's focusing on what's going wrong. Then our memory helpfully supplies a highlight reel of all our past failures, which just reinforces that pattern. And the feeling that comes with it, maybe some anxiety or resignation, that makes the whole loop feel stable and true. And finally, our beliefs swoop in with a story to justify it all. See, I'm just not good at this. And the result? It's a self-validating reality bubble that we almost never think to question.
So this leads to a really crucial point from Gilligan's work, a simple but pretty profound equation. Your identity is your trance. Your sense of self, it isn't some fixed, solid thing. It's a constructed, habitual pattern that's pretty much running on autopilot.
But here's the thing, these personal loops of ours, they aren't happening in a vacuum, right? They're all operating inside a much, much larger field. And that brings us to the next layer, the collective trance of our society.
This is where the work of Arnold Mindell comes in, and it is fascinating. He argues that what we call consensual reality is itself a kind of collective trance that we are all, in a way, addicted to. And the reason for this addiction, it's actually pretty simple: safety. When we all agree on what's real, it gives us this powerful sense of belonging and stability.
So let's put these side by side to really see the difference. On one side, you've got the personal trance, and that's kept alive by your individual habits and your beliefs. But on the other side, you have this huge collective trance, and it's maintained by society's shared rules, the big agreements about what's real, what's acceptable, and even which experiences get labeled as pathological. One shapes your identity, the other shapes the entire reality you operate in.
Okay, so if we're locked in these personal trances, which are themselves locked inside these collective trances, how in the world does anything ever really change? This is where we need to introduce the crucial missing piece, the bridge. It's a concept from Ollsin called structural decoupling.
Structural decoupling. That's the key. It's the mechanism that literally unlocks us. It's that moment when the rigid, coherent story that we've been living inside starts to crack, to break down, and to lose its grip on us.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. It's night and day. On the left, you have structural coupling. Think of it as a locked box. Our perception is stable, sure, but it's also completely restricted. On the right, structural decoupling is the moment that lock shatters. The old pattern weakens, and the whole system suddenly becomes open to new information, new perspectives, and a much deeper form of intelligence.
So what actually kicks this off? What triggers this decoupling? Well, it could be a bunch of things. Maybe the trance, that old story you tell yourself. It just flat out fails to explain what you're actually experiencing. Or maybe a persistent symptom or a really powerful emotion just overwhelms that old story. It could even be an intrusion from your dream world, or just this rising fog of confusion where things just don't make sense anymore.
And that word, fog, that is exactly where we're going next. Because after we decouple from the old trance, we don't just land in some place of perfect clarity. Oh no. We enter this in-between space, this liminal zone, which the philosopher Eugene Gendlin called the murky or foggy zone.
And this zone, yeah, it can feel super uncomfortable because it's so unclear, it's non-linear, you can't even put words to it yet. But here's the thing, it is also unusually alive. This isn't a problem to be fixed, it's the fertile, messy ground from which new meaning and a new way of being can finally start to emerge.
And this is Gendlin's game-changing insight. He completely reframes this whole confusing state. The fog isn't a sign that you've failed. It's the signal that a deeper, implicit intelligence in your body is trying to come online and override that old, rigid trance pattern.
It's actually a sign of health. Okay, so now let's put all these pieces together. We can now synthesize all these ideas from Gilligan, Mindell, Ollsin, and Gendlin into one complete sequence. This is the journey of how our consciousness actually reorganizes and transforms itself.
So here it is, the full sequence. Number 1, we're just existing in our stable trance. 2, then a disturbance shows up, a feeling, an event, something that just doesn't fit the old story. 3, this triggers structural decoupling, and the old structure starts to shatter. 4, we enter that liminal, murky fog. 5, from inside that fog, a new order, a new direction begins to emerge. And finally, number 6, the system recouples into a new and hopefully more flexible, more alive trance.
So why does any of this matter? What's the big deal with this model? Well, it's because it gives us a psychologically accurate and really grounded framework for understanding change without needing to romanticize or mythologize it.
First off, it shows us that ordinary consciousness is already an altered state. It's just one we're used to. Second, it makes it clear that any real meaningful change requires destabilization. That decoupling phase is essential. It's not a mistake. Third, it shows us that it's in that very breakdown that a deeper intelligence finally gets a chance to emerge. And lastly, it reminds us that the goal isn't to get rid of trance completely, but to consciously form a new one that's more flexible and more awake.
And think about what this model suddenly explains. It's huge. It shows us why we resist change, because we're literally addicted to the feeling of safety inside our current trance. It explains how spiritual experiences or awakenings can completely reorganize our identity by decoupling us from our old self. It helps us understand how trauma can trap people in these rigid, looping trances. And it even shows why creative insights require a softened, less rigid state of mind.
So we'll leave you with this question. Now that you have this map, now that you can see the process, where in your own life do you see the disturbance signal? Where do you maybe feel that fog rising? And most importantly, where is your next opening for emergence?